Hello. What a year it's been. I hope you and your family are doing okay. Welcome to our look back at the media year in 2020. And you know, if there's one word I don't think we've heard enough of this year, it's unprecedented. When it comes to the media, the pandemic has had a cataclysmic effect. Local and national media, especially those funded by advertising, have had one long nightmare. Newspapers have faced yet more misery and decline. Publishing groups, broadcasters and advertisers have made big cuts. Yet demand for quality news and entertainment has soared. Back in the spring, broadcasters in particular faced a huge new set of challenges. How to deliver and produce news safely.
Britain's coronavirus crisis. Coronavirus.
In a crisis.
Coronavirus.
It's horrible.
Pandemic.
Especially one in the information age.
Hand sanitizer.
COVID-19.
Trusted news becomes a precious commodity.
Social distancing.
For which there is high demand.
Coronavirus.
Britain has a range of regulated public service broadcasters doing their best to produce world-class journalism. Ratings for news programmes across all channels are soaring, with many presenters broadcasting from home.
Published data showing that transport use across the country.
But actually producing broadcast news is exceptionally hard in a global pandemic.
I'm just going to script a line about Northern Ireland then to put in at this point.
Innovation is the only solution. There is plenty of it about.
Recording.
The NHS scheme only covers England and Northern Ireland.
Here, correspondent Judith Moritz is at home in Manchester, working on a BBC News piece with her cameraman and editor Rob Wood, who is nearly 30 miles away in Derbyshire.
The NHS scheme only covers England.
News reports are the result of teamwork between correspondents, producers, camera operators and studio editors. Oh, and children too, who can make their presence felt when correspondents work from home.
What are your thoughts?
Keeping both staff and contributors safe is a priority. Video interviews has become the norm of late. Keeping 2 metres away from interviewees can be hard, but boom mics allow sound to be captured safely in high quality.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. The headlines this morning.
And it's not just television. Kitchens and front lounges have been converted into makeshift radio studios, like those of the Today programme. Here's the BBC's David Sillito using a duvet to improve sound quality. Furnishings can absorb sound and reduce echo.
I'm working on a piece with David Hockney.
Apps such as Skype and Zoom are therefore replacing face-to-face daily editorial meetings.
Jonty, what do you think about using that clip that we've already laid down?
We can do that.
Broadcasting is always a technical adventure, but right now, more than ever. Amol Rajan in central London, working with producer Elizabeth in Kent and editor Jonathan in North London. Always remember, news is a team effort. With lockdown, many TV and film productions inevitably came to a halt. That caused hardship, not just for the artists, but for the crews, the engineers, the makeup artists and everyone involved in production. Thankfully, by the autumn, many of those productions were up and running again, as my colleague David Sillito discovered.
It's been a while.
Oi! You'll put the Panthers off their paninis.
EastEnders returned to our screens after a COVID-related break. But social distancing has rather changed filming. For instance, let's look again at that kiss. What you can't see is what's actually between them.
There's a screen in between us which you can't see because of the way it's shot behind the railings. The railing is covering the fact that the screen is there, so we're kissing the screen.
It looks like we can be as close as we need to be because of the screen.
And here, no screen, but a deceptive camera angle. There's also another solution. Bring your own partner.
We've had partners bring in their real partners for kissing scenes, so it's a total new way of working.
The TV and film industry has had to think on its feet to get production back to almost normal. But for the soaps, Coronation Street, Emmerdale and EastEnders, it's been a challenge.
For local print newspapers, disruption mostly means terminal decline. Despite a few scraps from the likes of Google and Facebook, the market for local news in this country is broken. There is huge demand for trusted local information, but for now, a lack of willingness to actually pay for it. There were big redundancies at national titles like The Mirror and The Guardian too. Titles like the London Evening Standard and Metro, which depend heavily on commuters, were particularly badly hit. But there was plenty of exceptional journalism this year. And one of the scoops of the year was a co-production between The Guardian and The Mirror. I spoke to The Mirror's editor, Alison Phillips, about how breaking a massive story in a pandemic isn't exactly glamorous.
Back in the summer we did the Dominic Cummings story, which was like one of those great stories that you live to do. And it was late on a Friday night that we finally got enough to get it over the line, to get it up online at 7 and then in print the next morning. And so there was me in my spare room, and then there was our head of news who was sat by his son's bunk beds working, and then our night editor there in his flat. And I was thinking, this is not how it looks in the movies, is it? Where you're trying to break a really big, important story.
I'd love to get your side of that story. This was a big exclusive that you shared with The Guardian. We spoke to Kath Viner, we've spoken to Pippa Creary, your political editor, about it. Just tell us again why you ended up working together with The Guardian on something like that.
We'd had a call really early on, and I think, and as The Guardian had as well, they'd gone to number 10 and we were being completely stonewalled. And you know, as you know, you need to be absolutely certain that when you go, and the idea that we weren't getting any response for them just made it really difficult. But we kept on working on it. We had, obviously, we've got Jeremy Armstrong, our reporter in the Northeast, was on it for several weeks, and photographers, and we were looking at all sorts of different, trying to patch it all together. And then Pippa heard that The Guardian were also looking at, they had different sources as well, and then by bringing it together, and I spoke to Kath Viner, and we knew that together we had enough to get it over the line.
Did you deliberately hold back some details to give you a really strong splash over several days? In other words, did you drip feed the story?
No, not intentionally, in that in that there were some bits of the story that we needed to more work on.
And just to be clear, did you have any sort of an agreement, an informal one it might be, with The Guardian about what they would do and what you would do?
Oh yeah, completely. So we had to make sure that we were going with the same lines on the same day at exactly the same time.
Alison Phillips of the Mirror titles there. Let's turn now from traditional media to an area that has seen exponential growth. In recent years, an alternative media economy has sprung up, one in which tens of thousands of entrepreneurs become so-called creators, producers and presenters of their own content, their own media. This alternative universe is, of course, YouTube. And in the past year, one of its biggest stars, Joe Wicks, has become part of the daily routine for millions of us.
Let's go! Good morning everybody and welcome back to PE with Joe. Today's workout is another Wheel of Fortune workout.
While Joe Wicks became an even bigger national star than he already was, countless others are finding fame and fortune as YouTubers. I spoke to YouTube's managing director for the UK and Ireland to get inside this revolution.
What lockdown confirmed, or what the pandemic and the impact of the lockdown confirmed for us, is something that we've known for a long period of time, which is YouTube is where the nation comes to watch content that they love. And you know, what happened during the pandemic was some of those things came much more into the public sphere rather than the private sphere for us all, and they became really shared moments.
What you're talking about really is the creation of a whole new economy, aren't you? You're talking about a huge number of people, individuals, some of whom become very famous, some of whom become very rich, some of whom don't, but hope to, and also businesses, which are essentially YouTube phenomena. So this is a new economy.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it's a critical part, in my view, of the UK's current creative economy. It is, as you say, it includes individuals who are making very significant money. There will be names in the UK, KSI, Zoella, that people will know of from history, who've built their brands, their personality, and ultimately their business on YouTube as a platform. But there are also people who set out as businesses. You know, if I think in the UK, GRM Daily began as Grime Daily.
GRM, that just the holy grail of black British music.
Started by two young guys who had a passion for a particular genre of British music and have built themselves into what is today kind of like the heartbeat of British youth culture. Or at the other kind of completely different audience, Global Cycling Network. Another example of a channel begun by two guys, again round the kitchen table, this time in Bath. All you need to do is make a direct connection with an audience that shares your passion, that's as interested about the topics that you're interested in. And you can build and shape those audiences. Our gaming creators are female gaming creators. A young woman who called Yami, or whose kind of channel name is Yami, Yasmin Udin, who's from Leeds.
My son Dante has been requesting me to play this game for about a month. Every single day he said to me,
"Please, can you play the Henry Stickmin collection?"
She's a young woman who's built a hugely successful gaming channel. She had a child at 16. That would probably, largely speaking, rule you out of a career in mainstream media, traditional media entities. Actually hasn't held her back at all. Any one of our creators would be able to open their analytics and see what's happened to pricing in which market, where did their viewership come from. That empowers people to make informed decisions. There is he's not as famous as Joe Wicks, but he's, on our platform at least, he's just as successful as Joe Wicks. There's a young guy from kind of Folkestone and Hythe called Matt Morsia.
The more subscribers I have, ultimately the more I can command in terms of sponsorships, right? So if I go to a company and say I have 1.5 million subscribers, I can ask for more money, I can get a bigger sponsored video.
And he's produced multiple videos explaining how much he's made, either from an individual video, how much he's made overall.
Point before I forget, like, that money, that ad revenue from this video, that's more money than I made in an entire year as a teacher. Your chest, your bicep.
One of the other areas of media making a lot of people very rich is gaming. Gaming was one of the big winners of the pandemic. Stuck indoors, millions of us travelled into virtual worlds, limited only by the speed of our broadband connections.
He's at his head, Clint. He's at his head.
Call of Duty, the first-person shooter video game, isn't merely an experience these days. For a growing army of players, it's the pinnacle of a career. That includes 21-year-old Sean O'Connor from Glasgow. A bit like a top footballer, he plays for the London Royal Ravens, one of the best teams in the International League. He's just signed a six-figure deal through his manager and often trains for 8 hours a day.
I feel like in gaming that has a thing for everyone. There's streaming, there's YouTube, there's competing, there's just casual gaming. I think there's a lot that even the casual or even older or younger can all play and have a good time. And you can do it from the comfort of your room.
"Don't eat the food product!" Oh my God.
Gaming today is more a global social network than a digital version of Monopoly or Snakes and Ladders. Global revenues have leapt from under $20 billion annually a decade ago to a projected $200 billion within the next 3 years. The growth in the UK alone was astounding, even before lockdown led to a huge surge in playing. Smartphones and consoles are driving that growth. And Britain is benefiting. These vast buildings are now creative studios deployed for making films or games. If ever there was evidence of new media supplanting old, it's here. A former print work site for the Daily Mail in Oxfordshire, now owned by Rebellion, a British media giant that makes games such as Evil Genius 2, Sniper Elite, and this one, Zombie Army 4.
One of the key technologies for us in the games industry is digital distribution across a global population. So the more people that we can connect to with our games, the more people can play them. And then it just becomes a challenge of discovery. Key component, though, is it's exporting our creativity worldwide. And the audience for our computer games is as broad as we can reach with the internet.
It may look like a blank canvas, but sites like this one, 50 miles west of London, will help video gaming dominate the attention economy. New technologies are making even the most complex games universally accessible. Multiplayer titles have made gaming a social experience. And whereas books, films, TV shows and podcasts all have a single plot with an ending, it's in the very nature of gaming for the same content to go in countless attention-grabbing directions. These 3D worlds are great and growing business. New technology is converting gaming from an alternative reality to a way of life. Gaming's remarkable growth is being driven, like the rest of media, by the power of the internet. In the UK, regulators are belatedly trying to limit the dominance of a few tech giants, having announced the creation of a digital markets unit in just the past few weeks. In America, the Department of Justice is also on the offensive, taking Google to court in the next year. Indeed, what we're seeing is nothing less than a global battle for the soul of the internet. A Cold War is underway between the world's leading two superpowers. though it's been little noticed this year by voters dealing with a global pandemic. What started out as a battle over trade escalated into threats over the exchange rate for the yuan and is now a major conflict. As ever in battles between ideologically conflicting superpowers, America and China are vying for technological supremacy. Two companies illustrate that battle. Huawei, with its dominance of 5G, and TikTok, a young entertainment platform already boasting over 800 million users. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, now worth $100 billion. Its founder, Jiang Yiming, has pledged deep cooperation with the Chinese Communist Party. That is why politicians of all stripes in America see TikTok, like Huawei, as a national security threat, giving China access to the precious data and attention of American citizens. Earlier this year, President Trump demanded it be sold to a non-Chinese company and that the US Treasury get a cut. It's unprecedented in the US, but such assertions of sovereignty are already standard practice in China, where platforms like YouTube and WhatsApp are blocked, along with foreign sources of news and religious instruction, and where the web is a tool of surveillance. In a sense, then, President Trump merely borrowed from China's playbook. And these new methods of control go further than just the US and China. In India, for example, Narendra Modi's government has banned TikTok and other Chinese-owned mobile apps. And other states have used various social media controls, monitoring or censorship. TikTok then isn't just a platform for video pranks. It proves there is a battle for the soul of the internet in an era of rising net nationalism, where governments say that countries and not companies should control the web. With almost half of humanity not yet online, how and if this big digital chill spreads could shape the 21st century. You're watching a review of the media year here on BBC News. It's good to have you with us. As ever, the British royal family were all over the headlines. At the start of the year, Prince Harry's war on tabloid culture led to the departure of him, Meghan and their son from official duties. There was a multi-million-pound deal with Netflix and a sympathetic book about them serialised in the Times. And all the while, Prince Harry and Meghan are pursuing legal action against several of Britain's newspapers. There will be headlines aplenty from court in the coming year. In October, extraordinary allegations resurfaced that Martin Bashir's astonishing interview with Princess Diana from 25 years ago was partly obtained through forged bank statements. Bashir, who's recovering from a major operation, hasn't spoken. But Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC, has announced an independent investigation led by a former judge. One of the central figures in that investigation will be Davie's predecessor, Tony Hall. He was Director of News when the Diana interview aired. He bowed out after 7 years as Director General this summer, and in his exit interview, he addressed rows over the N-word and Rule Britannia, and suggested ways in which the BBC might need to change in a world ripped asunder by technology. 8 years ago, deep editorial failures over coverage of Jimmy Savile and Lord McAlpine led to the resignation of a Director General of the BBC after just 54 days. Chris Patton, then chairman of the BBC, sent for Tony Hall, a former director of BBC News who had effected a commercial and creative turnaround at the Royal Opera House.
And standing on the edge of the sea.
After steadying the ship, Hall's big challenge was to negotiate a new charter for the BBC. Central to his deal was the BBC taking on a welfare payment for free TV licences for the over-75s. Hall considered this nuclear. Did you threaten to resign over that?
I thought about resigning, but at that moment I thought you've got to get in there and try to stop this or ameliorate what they're proposing to do.
Did you make clear to them that this is a welfare payment and that's what governments do and not broadcasters?
Yes, we made all those arguments were kind of laid out. It was one of the most difficult and tense set of negotiations or discussions I've ever had.
The BBC has now said it will pay only for free TV licences for those on pension credit, a level the government decides on. At the end of that negotiation, which you led for the BBC had a time bomb placed underneath it, and that time bomb is going off just as you're leaving.
You call it a time bomb. I say we've come to a solution which is actually an absolutely fair solution, which is those who cannot afford to pay for the licence fee, don't have to pay for it if you're on pension credit.
But for a
the
lot of people,
licence
this is a very, very painful choice. There are hundreds of thousands or millions of people in this country who love the BBC, who've supported the BBC for years and who've got used to having it for free. Why are you now actively hurting those people and saying you've got to pay for something you've been getting for free?
But you've got to go back and say who actually is responsible for this. I mean, which a then majority Conservative government put on the BBC.
For many truly national institutions, from the BBC to the monarchy, the struggle to reflect a more diverse, divided and digital Britain itself creates deep divisions. In July, the BBC broadcast the N-word, prompting an outcry. Initially, it defended the decision strongly. Then, Hall apologised.
I felt using the N-word at that time of day in that report was a mistake. These are difficult decisions, and in the end, occasionally I've intervened as Director General when I felt it was right.
The future, Hall reckons, is a mixed model.
I think the news business is one which is very difficult to make commercial sense out of, and that's why I've been arguing with the government to say, give us some more money, we can get to 1 billion people globally. Then we've also been working with ITV on a thing called BritBox, and BritBox outside this country, and I think that could be the breakthrough for us going to many, many more places globally and selling to people directly.
Lord Hall has been an effective Director General who probably had the toughest job of any Director General. His tenure was shaped by dealings with a majority Conservative government. The same will be true of his successor. The US election was predictably a festival of misinformation, not least from the outgoing president himself, something Twitter decided to call out. When Trump has made claims about election rigging or missing ballots, Twitter now attaches a label declaring those particular claims about election fraud are disputed. Note, they stop short of saying they are false, somewhere very few tech companies want to go. Actor Johnny Depp lost a high-profile libel case against The Sun, which had a headline calling him a wife-beater. Depp has been dropped from the next Fantastic Beasts movie. 2020 was the year we lost two broadcasting giants. Nicholas Parsons and Des O'Connor both died. And journalism lost one of its greats with the death of Sir Harry Evans. They don't make them like Harry Evans anymore. As the most celebrated British editor of his generation, he personified the noblest possibilities of both journalism and social mobility in the 20th century. The son of a railwayman and grocery store owner, he came up through local papers, first on the Manchester Evening News, then as editor of the Northern Echo in Darlington, aged just 32. Harry Evans fell out spectacularly with Rupert Murdoch, but not before, in 13 years at the Sunday Times, he redefined journalism itself. A master craftsman, he pioneered a form of brave, investigative, campaigning journalism, famously winning compensation for the survivors of thalidomide, a drug given to pregnant women who gave birth to children with serious birth defects. It was a landmark victory.
It's the most important judgment for not only for the freedom of the press, but for the citizens' right to know in England. The most distinguished group of judges have told the British government, reform the laws. They've got to do it now.
The 10 years of public campaigning have left their mark on the family.
David Mason was the parent who first interested Evans in the story. His daughter Louise was one of those affected by thalidomide as a baby. She died 2 years ago, after many years of poor health.
I went along to the offices of the Sunday Times, and Harry Evans got up from the far end of the table and walked down. There were all the board in there, and he said, "David, I want to pledge now all the support of the Sunday Times and all the power that we can muster to take these people on, distillers, and get the due compensation to which the victims are entitled." He was invaluable. He really was invaluable, and I'll miss him greatly.
Evans moved to America with his wife, the journalist Tina Brown, shifting from a golden era in newspapers to one in magazines. Now in a New York power couple, he was a long way from his north of England roots, but remained forever a newsman at heart.
He excelled at everything journalism required. He was a fine writer. He had a great eye for layout and design and typefaces. He had an unerring instinct for a story, and he believed in investigative journalism. And he took all that and he used it to create the modern Sunday Times.
The embodiment of a humble hack taking on mighty forces with nothing but the truth Harry Evans put journalism itself in a debt to him that will never be serviced. Sir Harry Evans, we owe him so much. The digitisation, not just of media, but of our entire lives, will of course accelerate in 2021. Look out for a new wave of antitrust measures as regulators everywhere try to break up tech monopolies. The tech Cold War splintering the internet further. Lots of royals in court, a new chairman, maybe a new path for the BBC. And a shake-up of British broadcasting with the arrival of GB News as the battle for our ears, eyes and attention intensifies. Whatever you're doing, and however digital your Christmas may be, I hope you and your family have a happy and healthy time. Thanks for watching.